E-Town, good afternoon. Scott Bramley here with the next episode of the Remote Learning Rundown. This week I'm putting a spotlight on staff. So in this episode, I'll be talking to the following colleagues: Brent Nance, Phil White, Doyle Morales, Angelina Harding, and Trish Woods. These are folks who are super supportive of our school district, our students, staff, and families, and their roles have shifted a little bit during remote learning. Some have stayed the same, some have shifted. The work that they've been doing might have changed a little bit, but their core commitment to service remains the same. So I wanted to take an opportunity to put a little bit of a spotlight on the work that they've been doing and let everyone at home kind of know what's been going on in the building as we've been doing remote learning. Here were the prompts that I asked our guest this week, basically to just describe the work they've been doing. We don't know necessarily, and I think it's really important to just get a sense of how staff have been at the building and remotely continuing to serve our families. And then I also asked them to share any piece of advice they might want to based on what they've learned. A lot of our colleagues haven't had a lot of opportunity to work with students and families directly. Certainly in the classroom, we're working with students via Zoom or Google Meet, but to meet with families, to interact with them at material distribution or delivering materials to their homes, there's a lot of insights that we can gain from the staff who have been working to support them. That also includes phone calls home. A lot of staff have been making phone calls home, and so all these interactions with our families, hopefully we can learn from that experience together. So first up is Brent Nance. All right, E-Town, I'm here with Brent Nance. You all know him over there in South 127, but coming to you today from the home office. Brent, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and talking about your experience during remote learning this first semester.
Okay.
So I got a couple questions for you. I think, everyone in the school community may not know the work that you've been doing to support students and staff during this time. And so if you wouldn't mind just taking a few moments to describe a little bit about what you've been doing, how you've been supporting students and staff as we've been in this remote learning.
Just like everybody else, I had to adjust how I do things. Some people might see me in the hallways when we're in-person learning, and I'm actually going around and trying to track down kids who are our hall walkers, and I always like to call them our unofficial security. They're in the halls as much as our security guards. The students who've had problems in the past when we were in-person learning, their problems just pretty much just increased tenfold once we went to remote learning. I've been having to make a lot of phone calls, track down, send emails. Ms. Kinsey actually gave me a strategy that she's used in the past when trying to reach a parent who's been difficult to reach, is you call them 3 times in a row. And so that they're, sometimes ignoring the phone call because they don't feel like talking, but after about 3 calls, they usually answer. And I've had a lot of success using that strategy. Not everybody's happy when they answer the phone, but you got to try to get in touch with the kids. We've been trying to find ways to help get some kids re-engaged, because there's some kids who actually weren't truant during in-person learning who have actually surfaced as truant kids during remote learning. And, it has a lot to do with, home situations and living situations. A lot of our kids are responsible for looking after younger siblings because their parents still have to go into work, and, I'm still doing truancy, but I'm just doing truancy from afar, electronically, trying to find ways to get in touch with people. It's been definitely a challenge, but definitely trying to be persistent about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you something real quick before we got there.
Sure.
You're being very humble right now, which that's part of just who you are as I've gotten to know you over the years. But so I appreciate everything that you've been doing, and I think one of the things that maybe not everybody is aware of is just that outreach that you have to do looks a little bit different as you were describing. But I know one of the things that you have been doing is some home visits to try to bring students back into the fold and make sure that they're being successful. So
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind just for a second, just maybe describe kind of that process. Like, you're this, you've always done home visits to some degree, but like as it happens in right now during the pandemic, could you help everyone understand a little bit about what you're experiencing with the home visits?
Okay. Um, First and foremost, I'll say that this was by choice. I wasn't forced to do this. I'm doing it on behalf of the school, trying to be, part of the team. And we've been going with the home visits for about a month or two now. The student support team, SPED, alt school, home, our day school have been referring kids to me. And, I compile a list each week. I usually do it on Mondays. Um, I'm wearing as much PPE as I can get my hands on. I'm practicing social distancing. I do have to ring bells, so I carry my handy spray bottle of hand sanitizer with me everywhere I go. Um, you know, that some days when I do the home visits, I have a lot of success and there's people home, and then some days I'm going to places and people aren't there. But from what I have experienced with meeting a lot of the kids who are having trouble attending classes, they're always saying that they're having trouble getting onto the Google Classroom and the Zoom calls with their teachers. And I think for a lot of them, it's an organizational thing. They probably have access to all this information, but they just don't know how to organize themselves and schedule, set a schedule of how to discipline to log on to each one of these classes. One thing I recommend to a lot of people, teachers, is to try to utilize the calendar function on Gmail that we, all the kids are using the ETHS 202 account. I think the calendar function is something that we should expand on. Maybe some teachers are already using it, but if you use that and like you can send reminders through the calendar for maybe big assignments that the kids need to do, or just to get on their classes. I think that would be a great resource to keep these kids in tune, because when you do that, you can just put the Zoom link in the calendar invite, because a lot of teachers use the same Zoom link for each class. They could just go onto that and they get their reminder that the class starts in 15 minutes and they can just click on the link. I don't know, that's just something I think that could help.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon. And I think one of the things I always say on the remote learning rundown is we are all educators. And so,
Mhm.
your feedback and your suggestions, your recommendations, I greatly appreciate that. And I know our staff will as well. And to that point, that was my second question. And you kind of already went there, but
Yeah.
was there anything else through this experience, anything you've learned or anything you want to share, feedback that you want to offer as you've been working with our families? And that's a really unique perspective, right? Like not everybody's had the same level of contact with students and families during this as you've been able to. And so if there's anything, no pressure, but if there's anything that you wanted to offer in addition to what you just did.
I know that a lot of the teachers are sitting there teaching to a whole big grid of black screens. These kids are not turning on their cameras. I know there's no real answer to this, but I would say try to encourage these kids to turn on their cameras. That'll bring a little bit more connection, and it'll make the kids, just basically be able to see their classmates and everybody's trying to get through this remote learning thing and this not being in the building. There's some kids who really thrive on the social aspect of being in school, and it's being taken away from them. But from my experience, a lot of these kids are still hanging out with each other, because I go to some visits and I'm finding other kids that I've been looking for at other kids' houses. And, that's one thing with the cameras. When you're sitting there teaching to a whole bunch of black screens, you don't know if the kids are doing work or not, and sometimes they're not. But as far as some of the reoccurring thing I'm hearing from the kids. A lot of the kids are saying they can't find the links for the class, which I said before. They're saying they're having iffy connection issues with their web access at home. But sometimes, the kids are just sleeping in. We got to encourage all the kids to try to find a place to do their work at home, not in their bedroom, unless they have a bedroom with a office set up with a desk and everything. It's interesting. A lot of our kids are thinking that they can just do their work on their own time and not attend the classes on Zoom. There's a lot of things I'm hearing from the kids. Some of them have gotten jobs when they should be on their Zoom calls, So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. You're bringing up a lot of things that I think is super helpful. I think the cameras, certainly something we go back and forth with. And we asked the question on the most recent survey of students and staff about the camera usage. And, for a whole number of reasons, as you've articulated here, that, there might be students who are more or less comfortable with their cameras on. And I think we've been trying to really coach folks to think about, like, at what point in the class period, for what purpose, for the activity, might you need students to have it, or would it work better for them? And then inviting students to do that. And then when there are times when maybe you don't need to have the camera on, letting kids know that this would be a break from the camera, and kind of striking that balance, because we're trying to be sensitive to the fact we're all in our homes and all these types of things, right? So it's been quite a challenge on that front. But I appreciate your feedback and your thoughts. And it's funny, I was laughing when you said, sometimes you find one student you've been looking for at another kid's spot, and just thinking about how, that's great that you can seize that opportunity, but also just thinking about just how much we are all yearning for connection with each other. And
yes.
Being able to find it in a safe way, following the guidelines and the distancing and all that stuff. Hopefully we're all finding opportunities to do that. So.
Yeah.
All right, E-Town, I'm here with Phil White from the safety department, and we're going to talk a little bit about what Phil's been doing during remote learning, how he's been supporting students and staff. And so first off, thank you so much, Phil, for being here and for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk to the family here.
Yes, hey, good morning. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me out here, and looking forward to always getting up every morning, helping our students and community, especially during this crazy pandemic time we're dealing with.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I don't know if everybody at home knows kind of how your job has changed. Like, we all know what you do during the school year. We always see you making really strong connections with students in the hallways and, high-fiving and catching up on the weekend. And, you're a great, positive presence in the hallways for students. And, we have no students in the hallways and we don't have that same role. So your job has shifted greatly. And I just don't think everybody is aware. So I want to, elevate that a little bit and talk through what you've been doing. So if you wouldn't mind, Phil, just kind of letting us know, describing a little bit about what you've been doing during this time, this first semester, to support our students and staff.
Well, yes, most definitely. Like I said, no kids in the school, and it's definitely a big dramatic change. And, I definitely missed the camaraderie with the students and even with the staff. And so with me and the rest of the safety department, what we've been doing since school started back in August 17th to still be a connection to the students and everything. We've been delivering and handing out school materials for the student body, especially with the COVID-19 situation, without the students in here receiving books and having a whole crowd of people in the building. So me and the rest of my safety department been taking time out Monday through Friday, collecting book materials and study materials, and personally delivering them to the residents of the students in the Evanston community.
That's great, man. I was talking to Brent Nance earlier, and he wanted to make sure that I, on his behalf, gave a big shout out to you and the rest of the safety department for all the help you've been doing. I know you all been going along and supporting him on his home visits.
Yes.
And so he's very thankful for that. I wanted to make sure everybody knew just how much the safety department was supporting him in his work. So
Yes. Even during this time, the safety department uh, still holding a strong place with their students and staff and administrators. And when I was first came on safety, I was told, without the students, we wouldn't be here. It's be so truly now without them here. But we still want to let them know safety still cares about the students and their education and their well-being. And this is our way to help provide a service for these ETHS students.
So Phil, now, thank you for that. And I really appreciate it. I think everyone appreciates it, but I personally want to just say how thankful I am knowing, the conversations that have been happening, like how do we get materials to students? How do we get materials back from them? How do we make connections to continue to support them? How do we keep them motivated in school? And I know you've been also doing some work on that front too, like just trying to stay connected to kids and keeping them connected to school. So really appreciate that. But, not everybody has been able or, in a position to have the same level of contact with families during this time and students.
Yeah, sure.
And so I'm just curious, no pressure, you don't have to, but if there's anything that you wanted to share with the rest of the E-Town community here about what you've learned or any feedback that you have or anything that you just want to share with folks to consider based on your experience.
Well, I think, like you said, the key thing is communication is always strong, even during this time and era we have, especially you got the Zoom calls, dual calls, emails, and everything. And, like I said, I like the communication has been very strong, the connection with the student's body, and during this, like I said, during this crazy time. My whole thing, I'm just happy to be a service to Evanston and also Evanston Township High School. I thank everybody from like you, Dr. Witherspoon, Dr. Campbell, my boss, Mr. Driscoll, Mr. Dobie. I think everyone's done a great effort so far in the school year during what we're facing right now, these unprecedented times. So, like I said, communication I think is still going to be the big key with everything moving forward and beyond.
Thank you so much, Phil. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for all that you're doing. I know that the students are missing a connection to the school and we're missing a connection to them. But I'm sure that when you pull up to somebody's house or, even just with a bag of books or something,
Right.
I'm sure it puts a smile on our students' faces.
It mostly definitely does. I get so many, oh, Phil, I miss you guys. Man, I'm not going to be late to class anymore. I teach a hard time. And I said, hey, nothing wrong with that. Just, being a teenager. But I'm just glad you're still holding on and still pursuing your education of higher learning.
All right. Well, welcome back, E-Town. I'm here with Miss Morales now, and I'm so appreciative of her time and opportunity to learn the ways in which she's been supporting all of our students and staff during remote learning. So again, we're trying to put a spotlight on some of the folks in our community and in our family who are supporting us and our students as we're all trying to deal with the remote learning situation. So welcome, Doyla. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate all that you do.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first question. And so basically, if you wanted to just describe some of the things that you've been doing to serve and support our students and families and our staff during this time in your position. I know your job's changed a little bit because of the remote learning. And so I don't know that everybody's aware of that or the things that are going on still at the building while we're working from home. So if you would like to please share a little bit of your experience.
Okay. Well, a lot of the things I've been doing is pertaining to the students is, I would say, distributing books, making phone calls, lots and lots of phone calls. I have even taken on doing some attendance calls and trying to, I would say, troubleshoot as much as possible where attendance is concerned, if they're having emotional situations, where I would recommend a social worker or stuff like that, of that nature, or things that if I can talk to people just personally, empathize with them in situations, do that. Go to the problem zone, handle any little crisis that comes up that can help a student to better, to be more successful through this e-learning. And then I also did the class of 2025 t-shirts days that we stayed till about 6 in the evening time. So, I mean, it was nice doing all these things. I mean, it's a little different than what I'm used to. But then again, I've done these type of things before in summer schools and different things like that. So it's just something that comes back naturally.
I was going to say, although your role might be different than the normal school year, you've always been someone who's put yourself out there to try to help kids in any way that you can and help staff any way that you can. So that's certainly been my experience with you over the years. And so I greatly, it's no shock to me that just translates into this kind of new environment, just, a little bit of different roles, but certainly still keeping students at the center of your focus. So I greatly appreciate that.
I also, from time to time, I will look through, I have this, it's like an article that comes to me every so often regarding in-school suspension. So even though I no longer do in-school suspension, I still try to get information that relates to e-school learning and suspension. And then I pass it on to my boss so that, if any kind of information that I can get that can help in any which way that it is possible, I will pass on any information possible.
Well, you're certainly modeling the Evan Strong and the E-Town spirit there, Doyla. Appreciate it.
Of course. Don't forget, I'm a alum.
Well, thank you, Doyla. So just one last question. I mean, so not everybody's had the ability to have the amount of contact time that you've had with students and families. And, as you mentioned, we had our incoming freshman t-shirt distribution. We've had materials distribution, phone calls, emails to families. And so I'm just wondering if there's anything, no pressure, you don't have to, but if there was anything that you've learned or experienced during this time that you wanted to share with our colleagues to kind of help them in any way, just understand a little bit more about what you've been experiencing during this time.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things, but one in particular that comes to mind is students saying that, that they logged on into the teacher website or into the teacher site. However, they're not being marked present. And so you're making a lot of phone calls for, I won't say unnecessary reasons, because it is necessary at that point in time. But then once you get that information, then you have to say, okay, well, why don't you email the teacher or call the attendance office or whatever situation comes up. I have to have somewhat of an answer for the student in order to help them progress from where they are, because they're not aware that they're marked unexcused until I make that phone call or until one of the other ladies make their phone calls. So I think we need to have somewhat of a simpler or better system when the kids log in, so the teacher can see those kids, even though I know that kids do not have to have their video on, their camera on, but we need to have some kind of way for teachers to note that all these kids are logging in, and then that way we don't have to be making unnecessary phone calls to students. Because a lot of the kids are saying, I was in class, so I don't understand why I'm being marked unexcused. And then you have some parents that are either they're not quite understanding the process of making phone calls to clear their students' attendance, so to speak, or to acknowledge that the student is going to be out. I think that is something that we also need to get a clearer understanding on for the parents. And, and we can go from there. And then the tech issue, that's another thing. Sometimes there's cross or miscommunication. Either the kid didn't understand what the teacher said, or I don't know. I mean, because I'm not privy to what the teacher said, but I go by what the kids say to me, and I'm not always 100% in the in the role of believing everything that they say, but I have to take it at face value. And so going from face value, and I have actually, I've been in contact with some teachers, not a whole lot, and I've been in contact with social workers and different parties, like the team and stuff like that, to try to resolve issues. So.
Yeah, you're bringing up some really important points there, Doyle, and I think it's interesting, right? There's the student story, the teacher story, and somewhere in there's the truth. There's always three sides, because it's interesting. I think it's great feedback, and we need to continue to think about it. And especially during this time, one of the things I've been learning is that as much as you can communicate something, it's just the capacity to hear those messages or read them or digest them. We just need to continuously be reminding students, families of what these processes are. And it's interesting because, like, I know on one hand, I think I know, maybe I'm wrong, but like in TAC where the teachers take attendance, that's a default to present. Like, you have to actively mark somebody unexcused absent. And so for the students, like, you might be saying you were there, but somebody had to physically say that you weren't there. So there's a little bit of that disconnect there. So I think you're right. There's probably some of those are very true, and some of those might just be, that's one strategy to kind of address why maybe they're not showing up.
Well, that's one of the things that I say to the kids as well. I tell them, I said, the teacher, the teacher is the one that has to mark them as unexcused. So if they know that they were in that class, one way I tell them, I said, well, you got to prove what you did in that class for the day. So when you make that call to the teacher, say, you know what, I've been in this class. This is what we did for today. But I got a phone call saying I was marked unexcused. How can we rectify the situation? And go from there. So, and parents have been very appreciative of me giving them information on how to navigate this situation. And I would say they've been very appreciative.
That's great. That's so great. I think you're bringing up one of those things, like that kind of counseling, that kind of support, that help of navigating the system. It's just, I think about how much we aren't maybe able to do that in regular school years, and just, being able to reallocate some time and have staff who are making those calls and making those connections and deepening those connections with families. I just really appreciate it. I think, you said the families appreciate it, but I appreciate it, and I know our colleagues do too. So thank you so much, Doyle.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I want to say one thing. I have one particular student. I'm not going to name no name, but I noticed the student was on my list. And so I called the student. I talked to the parent. I talked to the student. And then I explained I said, I asked the mom, can I talk to the student directly? So I spoke to the student directly, and I let her understand. And I said, this is your crucial year. You can't keep missing class. You're going to fall further and further behind. Found out some information. I related to the social worker, let them handle it from there. However, I asked, and then I also emailed the social worker, Miss Kinsey, and everybody, and I said, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I want to know if it's okay for me to reach out to this student from time to time. The mom was she was okay with that. And when I make the phone call, and now I don't even see the students on the attendance list no more. So and as soon as I make the phone call, the mom said, I know this number. Hi, Miss Morales. So I try to reach out from time to time.
Thank you so much, Doyle. All right, E-Town, welcome back. I'm here with Angelina Harding today, who is going to speak to us a little bit about her experience during the pandemic and how she's been supporting you and your students. And so thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy with distribution and things today, Ms. Harding, so thank you so much for being here.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
So, Ms. Harding, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you've been up to? Now, obviously, people know what you do during the year. Sometimes they know some of what you do. Nobody knows everything, but we know that you are definitely holding it down for our kids and for our school every day, from very, very early in the morning before the sun even rises to very late in the evening. So you've always been truly passionate about your service to the school community. But not everybody knows exactly what maybe you've been doing during remote learning, right? And how your role has changed a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what you've been working on and how you've been supporting kids and staff while we've been remote.
Okay, anyone that knows me knows I'm here for the students, so that's my main goal. I have been assisting my homeless kids as I normally do during the school year. It's been a little bit tougher during the school year now because of the pandemic. So we have to go to different locations to drop off their materials and or kit care bags. So normally, since I know the families, I will deliver those to their homes because they know me, we have a rapport, and I don't want them to feel uncomfortable because a lot of them may be in shelters or thereof. So basically what we're doing in South Cafe, we have a team of maybe 11 people. We have book orders for students. So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, we put them on tables by door 2. The students have an opportunity to pick it up all day on Monday. Wednesdays and Fridays, they can come after school from, I believe, 2 to 4. Once the books are not picked up that day, the following day, we start delivering to the actual homes. So we deliver about maybe 50, 55 packages a day between the drivers that we have. I do assist the needed 2 delivers. I might go with the safety staff because we can't drive alone. And they'll drive and then I'll just get out and deliver the packages.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things there that I think are so important to just keep in mind. You know, we have students who are in situations where maybe they don't have a home environment that's steady enough to be doing the remote learning all day, every day, right? And, you know, you mentioned shelters, but just also, you know, thinking about everyone's facing a lot of circumstances these days during the pandemic, but our students are as well, right? They have like real legit like adult issues that they are dealing with as kids. And so, you know, as much as our curriculum and as much as our instruction is important, our whole being, the holistic child, like keeping a focus on that is also very important. And so I appreciate you and being in your role of supporting students and, you know, the importance of having a relationship and, you know, trust with families and things that you've built over the years that allows you to interact with them during this time in a more successful way than maybe if we didn't have that relationship.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Yeah, so you mentioned the book distribution and things that are going on there and the staff that are there. So thank you so much. We have a lot of people who are working, their jobs have changed and they're working to get things to kids while they're at home. And so you maybe have more interaction with families right now than a lot of our staff and a lot of our colleagues just because we're working from home potentially. And so I don't know, is there anything that you might want to share? Now, there's no pressure, but, you know, if there's something you might want to share, feedback or advice or anything that you might want to share with our colleagues that you've learned during this time working with our students and our families.
As you stated, I mean, it's very stressful for all of us. I'm just trying to accommodate as many people as we can. I know it's tough for the teachers to come into the building, so, you know, they'll email me or Robbie, and we'll get it together and try to get the materials out. We do have a lot of people working in the CTE department with their supplies and everything, so we try to get that out as quickly as possible. A few teachers have come so they can see their students in person, you know, to meet them and greet them, and therefore. It's just tough for everyone right now. Like I said, we have maybe about a team of 11 people that work with me who are very, very helpful. I can't stress that enough. And our drivers even more because they have to run back and forth. They take maybe, like I said, 20 packages at a time between 8 and we end at 4. So whatever we can do to accommodate, you know, that's what we try to do. And I have met a lot of teachers that I haven't, you know, introduced myself to before. So, you know, just to make it easier for them because I know they're just as stressed as I am. And if there's a problem with the student or they know that I know the student, or if they tell me a name like, hey, yeah, I know such and such, I'll give that student a call like, hey, this is what's happening. Such and such is coming by the house. Please just make sure that you're there available and open the door. Just let them know that it's okay. Because I have a lot of students who won't open the door, period. You know, they're just scared and I get it. So I just let them know, you know, even if you don't want to come to the door, what we do is because we don't have any contact with the students. So we just make sure they're home. We'll put it on the porch and then they'll grab it.
Well, thank you so much. So, Angelina, always humble. You're always humble in your service, and we greatly appreciate it. And I know that you're just doing tons to support our students. And I
Okay.
appreciate you mentioning the staff that's working with you and the drivers, the folks from safety who are driving to deliver packages and materials. Just think about how all of you are working in the building, you're coming to the building to provide that support and service to all of us. And so we can't thank you enough. And I personally really appreciate everything that you've been doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, everybody, I'm here with Trish Woods from the Student Services Department, and wanted to thank you so much, Trish, for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. So thank you.
Sure, no problem. No problem.
All right, just so as you know, I've been just talking to some of our colleagues who have been supporting students during remote learning. Some of their work has changed, some of it has shifted, some of it's the same, but I think it's just nice for folks to hear about how you've been continuing to support students and families and staff during this time. So would you mind sharing just a little bit about what you've been doing in your work while we've been on remote learning?
Sure. So at the beginning of the year, what I did was made phone calls out to families, students, just making sure they had working Chromebooks and access to the internet. And once school started, as it was going along, I scheduling meetings with families and grade level teams just to help support students and see how they can help them to be successful, those that are struggling. So those meetings have been going on. And then the bulk of my time has been transcript. And, it's been a ton of requests coming in, and actually, we've actually received hundreds more this year than we did last year. So that was a surprise, but it was a good surprise because it means that students are applying to schools. And so Ms. Rodriguez and I have been just diligently working, getting those requests out. We just overcame our first deadline date, which was November 1st, and we had thousands, and when I do say thousands, it was thousands of requests to get out by November 1st, and we successfully did that. The counselors were great with their turnaround time, getting everything back to us so that we could get everything out. And so we've just been working hard on that and answering questions for students, helping them where they need help at as far as, with fee waivers and ACT and SATs. I know that those test dates are coming and going, and so we've been getting waivers out to the students for those. So just trying to be there for them as much as we can, just to help support the students and the families, because we know this is a trying time and it isn't how it normally would be during a regular school year where we'd be able to be face-to-face seeing them. So we just try to do what we can while we can.
Yeah, I certainly, one of the things that I miss about not being in the building is whenever I come into the suite, getting greeted by you and Stephanie so warmly. And even if I've made a controversial decision, or maybe I'm not the most popular man around town that day, always welcoming me and just smiling like you are now, and just, really helping everybody who comes in. And I think sometimes not everybody has the honor to be able to see you and Stephanie. Unfortunately, Stephanie wasn't able to join us today, but same, shout out to her, Ms. Rodriguez. But, can't always see the way that you interact with students too, and just the connections that you all make and how you serve kids, encouraging them. When you see kids waiting to see their counselor, you're having conversations with them too. Not just, they don't get to just sit there on their phone and act like you're not there. So I do really appreciate it.
I do miss the face-to-face with the students, seeing them every day, seeing, how excited they are when they get acceptance letters and things like that. So I do miss that connection with them. And I do feel it's a disservice to me and to them to not have that. So I try to, answer emails as quickly as I can with them and be as efficient with them as I can, just because I know that they don't have it as easy as being able to come right down and just shoot in and say a quick, I need this, and, be able to do that. So things are a little different for them this year. So we're just trying to be as accommodating as we can for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate you, making the calls at the beginning of the year, stepping in with that, taking on a group of students to just put a friendly contact out there at the beginning of the year. Hey, let's start out right. And, I'm here to help you. And So again, I think everyone has that mentality. Everyone's chipping in, and it's really, really appreciated. But before we wrap up here, so I know that, you know, you might have more contact with families and students than a lot of other folks outside of the classroom. You know, obviously we're connecting with students that way, but we're not getting to see families as often and interact with them in other ways. And so I'm just curious, you know, and no pressure here. You don't have to answer this if you don't have anything, but if there were anything that you wanted to share with your colleagues that you've learned during this experience, advice or feedback or anything that you wanted to offer up as you've learned through your time this first semester supporting students while we've been in remote learning?
Patience and just being understanding, because you know, this is different for the students, and so it's hard for them. And so I know that a lot of them are struggling with not being able to be in school, and it's an emotional thing for them. And so I just try to be as understanding as I possibly can without going crazy too, just because they're, to me, being overly panicky. But you know, just understanding it, you know, things hopefully will get back to a good normal soon. But with this new normal, it's just patience and understanding.
Yep. Thank you. Well, those are true, very important words to live by. True, and to be patient. I really appreciate it, Trish, and thank you so much for your time today.